Hi, my name is Brad. I'm 38 years old and I work as an electrician in Seattle. I live with my wife Megan in a small house on the outskirts of the city. We've been married for 12 years, and we don't have children yet. I can't say our marriage is cloudless. Megan is always dissatisfied with me, criticizing me for any reason. Either I don't earn enough, or I spend too much time with friends, or I don't help around the house. She rarely supports me, often comparing me to other men like, "John from next door is already a manager, and you're still a simple electrician." It's hurtful, to be honest. I try. I work a lot. It's just that I haven't been able to advance in my career yet. But my mother-in-law Carol is the complete opposite of her daughter. She's always on my side, understanding and supportive. She says that I'm the best thing that happened to Megan, and she should appreciate such a husband. Carol treats me better than her own son. He, by the way, is a rare fool, doesn't stay anywhere for long, always begging his mother for money. And in her eyes, I'm a model of male virtues. A couple of months ago, Carol bought a new house and decided to renovate it. She met me one day and said, "Brad, you're our jack of all trades. Maybe you could help me with the electricity in the new house. Need to check the wiring, move the outlets. I don't understand a damn thing about it." Of course I agreed. I had a small break between projects coming up, so I had free time. And I didn't want to refuse my beloved mother-in-law. She always supports me. It would be a sin not to help. Megan grumbled a bit, saying, "Again, my mother's getting you to work for free," but I didn't pay attention. That's what we decided. I started coming to Carol's almost every day after work, and on weekends, fiddling with wires and meters. And she fed me delicious lunches, asked about my affairs, encouraged me. It was so easy and pleasant to talk with her, not like with my eternally dissatisfied wife. Work at Carol's was going well. We worked well together. I dealt with the electricity, she handed me tools, recorded meter readings. Carol was keenly interested in everything, asked about the intricacies of wiring, loved to dig into schemes and drawings. I didn't even notice how I began to initiate her into all the nuances of my profession. "Brad, you're such a good fellow. Everything works out in your hands. My daughter should appreciate such a golden husband," Carol often said, handing me pliers or a screwdriver. "Yeah, she doesn't appreciate it. All she knows is to nag from morning till night," I sighed, rummaging in the distribution box. "What a fool. She should be happy that you're so homely and hard-working. If she looks for another, it will be worse." My mother-in-law was indignant. Her words were like balm to my soul. At least someone understands me and accepts me as I am. Not like eternally dissatisfied Megan. Carol and I could chat for hours, not noticing the time. She told me about her life, about how hard it was for her to raise 2 children alone. She recalled her turbulent youth, unsuccessful marriage, and I shared problems with Megan, complained about misunderstanding and constant reproaches. "Brad, I sympathize with you so much. It's hard to live with a woman who doesn't appreciate you. But still, hold on, don't give up. You're a strong and smart man," Carol encouraged, maternally hugging me by the shoulders. From her touches and words, such a pleasant warmth spread inside. I caught myself more and more often admiring Carol, her shapely figure, radiant eyes, cute dimples on her cheeks. My mother-in-law looked amazing for her age, fit, well-groomed, cheerful. Next to her, I felt vigorous and rejuvenated by 10 years. One day we were dismantling an old meter together, leaning closely over it. Our hands kept touching, sending exciting sparks through the body. At some point, I looked up and saw that Carol was looking at me intently. There was something new, unfamiliar in her gaze, something exciting and alluring. "It suits you when you work, so focused, collected. You look very manly," Carol said quietly, not taking her eyes off me. From her words and tone, my mouth suddenly went dry. My heart started racing wildly. Sweat broke out on my forehead. I looked at my mother-in-law and realized that I desperately wanted her. Right here and now. To hell with morality, status, age difference. To hell with everything. I don't know what came over me at that moment. Probably weeks of misunderstanding with my wife, lack of warmth and care took their toll. Or maybe I was just intoxicated by words of approval and admiration that I hadn't heard for so long. But then everything rushed as if in a fog. As if in slow motion, I gave in to the impulse and pressed my lips to Carol's in a passionate kiss. For a moment she froze, but immediately responded with frenzied fervor. Our hands greedily explored each other's bodies, as if afraid to miss a moment. Desire flared up brightly and irresistibly, making us forget about everything in the world. It all happened right there, on the floor of the unfinished kitchen, next to scattered tools and pieces of wire. When it was over, the realization of what had happened hit me. God, what have I done? Slept with my own mother-in-law, Megan's wife. How could I have done this? What will happen now? Carol, I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me. This is a terrible mistake. It won't happen again, I mumbled, frantically pulling on my pants. Don't talk nonsense, Brad. We're adults and we know what we want. There's been a spark between us for a long time, haven't you felt it? Carol objected, buttoning her blouse. I looked at her, so confident and calm, and didn't know what to say. On one hand, I was terribly ashamed before Megan. Like this behind her back with her mother. Is this how decent husbands behave? But on the other hand, the passion and tenderness that I had just experienced with Carol hadn't occurred in the marital bed for many years. My head was in complete chaos. I felt like the last scoundrel, a traitor, and a bastard. But at the same time, the thought of continuing this relationship irresistibly captured and made my head spin. Oh, if only I could just split into 2 parts. Brad, don't torture yourself. What happened is normal. We were both lonely for too long. You shouldn't be ashamed of your desires, Carol said softly, hugging me by the shoulders. Her words somewhat calmed my conscience, dulled the feeling of guilt. After all, who cares what happens between 2 adults? And then, don't I have the right to a drop of happiness and warmth? You're right, Carol. Just let's keep this a secret for now. Megan shouldn't know. It would kill her, I replied, kissing my mother-in-law on the temple. She nodded in agreement. We tidied ourselves up, cleaned up the traces of our sudden passion. I finished the wiring, said goodbye to Carol as if nothing had happened. But all the way home, I couldn't get out of my head what had happened between us, and what to do with it now. The next few weeks turned into a real torture for me. I was torn between duty to my wife and an insane attraction to my mother-in-law. My mind kept saying that I needed to stop this shameful affair, but my heart was drawn to Carol more and more. At first, I tried to avoid my mother-in-law, to reduce our meetings to a minimum. I referred to being busy at work, made up excuses, but she seemed to see right through me. She continued to call, invite me over under various pretexts. Brad, I need you, urgently. The contacts in the chandelier are shot, everything's sparking. Only you can help, Carol almost begged on the phone. I would come and find that she didn't have any short circuit, but she did have a smile from ear to ear, a bottle of wine and her signature apple pie, and an unrestrained desire in her eyes. Carol, we can't do this. We agreed to stop. I'm a married man. This is wrong, I protested weakly, realizing the futility of my objections. Oh, come on. What's wrong with 2 adults loving each other? Megan is to blame herself for not appreciating such a husband, and I appreciate you, Carol parried, leading me to the bedroom. And I gave in once again, forgot about everything in the world, giving myself to hurricane passion. With Carol, I felt so desired, needed, loved. Next to her, I was a real man, strong, confident, passionate. Not like at home with eternally dissatisfied Megan. My wife, by the way, began to suspect something. She kept making scenes over nothing, accused me of staying out late, not paying attention to her. And I made excuses, dodged, invented non-existent side jobs and meetings with friends. I was disgusted with myself, but I couldn't stop anymore. Brad, did you sit at your mother's till night again? And why is she so attached to you, as if there are no other electricians? Megan grumbled when I came home after midnight once again. No, dear, I told you. We were changing the wiring at Rick's dacha. You know how long it takes, I babbled, avoiding looking my wife in the eye. I felt sick at heart. I understood that I was lying, dodging, leading a double life. Self-respecting people don't do that. But I couldn't give up Carol either. This vicious passion had sunk too deep into my heart. This went on for almost 6 months. During the day, I worked and pretended to be an exemplary family man, and in the evenings, I ran to Carol, into her hot embrace, head over heels. We gave ourselves to passion with all-consuming selflessness, as if tomorrow didn't exist. Sometimes I was tormented by pangs of conscience, vowed to end this relationship. I honestly tried to fix my relationship with Megan, gave flowers, arranged surprises, helped more around the house. My wife accepted the courtship warily, not understanding what was happening. But gradually she thawed, began to smile. For a while it even seemed to me that not all was lost, that we could glue our crumbling marriage back together. But as soon as I saw Carol, touched her, all good intentions flew to hell. I was burning with desire, with an indomitable hunger for her body and soul. It was some kind of drug addiction, a painful obsession. One day, Carol and I were lying in bed after another marathon of passion. I was smoking, absent-mindedly looking at the ceiling and thinking about my difficult situation. Carol was silent, her head on my shoulder. "You know, I love you. For real. I've never felt anything like this for anyone," she suddenly said quietly. I tensed. The L word hadn't sounded between us before. I was afraid to say it out loud, as if it could irreversibly change something. "Carol, don't. Don't complicate things. What we have is just sex. Passion, attraction, nothing more," I cut off. "Of course, you can deceive yourself as much as you want, but the truth is that you're unhappy in your marriage. And with me, you're much more yourself than with Megan," Carol parried, sitting up in bed. Her words cut my heart. There was a grain of bitter truth in them. Indeed, didn't I feel 1,000 times more alive, real with Carol? Hadn't I dreamed of such honesty and openness all my life? But to admit it out loud meant betraying the marriage, spitting on morality. I wasn't ready for such radical actions yet. "Don't talk nonsense. We just have sex and nothing more. Period." "Sorry, I have to go," I cut off, quickly getting dressed. Carol looked at me with a long, searching gaze. Her eyes suspiciously glistened. "As you say, Brad, you can run to your beloved wife, but remember, you can't run away from yourself," she said quietly. I silently slammed the door. All the way home, I turned her words over in my head. Damn it, when did everything become so complicated? And why do I continue to rush between two fires torn to pieces? The denouement came completely unexpectedly. One day, I stayed late at Carol's. We were drinking wine, talking, making love. I completely lost track of time, carried away by our intimacy. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Carol and I looked at each other in fear. Who could it be at such an hour? She put on a robe and went to open. I hid in the bedroom just in case. With a sinking heart, I heard my wife's familiar voice. "Damn, not this. Did Megan come to her mother in the middle of the night suspecting something?" "Hello, Mom. Sorry for the late visit. I just wanted to know if Brad is with you. He's not answering his phone. And he left his friends 3 hours ago," I heard my wife's tense voice. "No, dear, he's not here. I've been alone all evening watching TV series," Carol answered carefreely. But Megan clearly didn't buy it. She unceremoniously pushed her mother aside and went into the living room. I went cold. On the coffee table were glasses, an unfinished bottle, a plate of fruit, and my jacket was lying on the couch. "Ah, so that's what it is. Having a family gathering, lovebirds? And how long have you been having an affair behind my back?" Megan screeched. I flew out of the bedroom, buttoning my shirt on the go. I realized that there was no point in hiding anymore. It was time to take responsibility and confess everything. "Megan, darling, I'll explain everything. Just don't worry. Sit down," I began, trying to seat my wife on the couch, but she broke free and screamed, spitting, "How could you? How could you both? With my own mother! You've ruined my whole life, you miserable dog!" Carol stood neither alive nor dead. There was a suffering expression on her face. I suddenly felt terribly sorry for her. After all, she too had become a hostage to our forbidden love. Meanwhile, Megan threw herself at me with her fists. She pounded on my chest, scratched, shouting something indistinctly through sobs. And I suddenly realized that I didn't care, that I no longer love this woman and don't want to be with her. And it's not even about Carol. We've just been strangers with Megan for a long time. And it's time to stop deceiving myself. Megan, stop. Let's talk calmly. I'm guilty before you, I don't argue, but our marriage has been cracking for a long time. Admit it, I said tiredly, intercepting my wife's hands. She froze for a second, breathing heavily. There was such pain and resentment in her eyes that I felt unbearably ashamed. God, how low have I fallen, betrayed the closest person, destroyed the family. Get out, I can't stand to look at you. File for divorce and live as you know. Just don't come crawling back begging for forgiveness, Megan said dully and ran out of the room. An oppressive silence fell in the living room. Carol and I looked at each other silently, not knowing what to say. For the first time in a long time, I felt a chill of estrangement between us. "Forgive me, Brad. I didn't want it to turn out like this, but I really do love you. Very much. You're dear to me," Carol said quietly, lowering her eyes. I sighed heavily. Well, what's there to say now? Megan is unlikely to be able to forgive me and take me back. And is it worth it? Why keep this fictitious marriage? Listen, Carol, I'm grateful to you for everything. You brought me back to life, made me feel like a man again. But we shouldn't rush. I need to get divorced, sort myself out, and then we'll see how it goes, I said slowly. Carol nodded. There were tears glistening in her eyes, but she smiled understandingly. I hugged her tightly goodbye. My heart ached with tenderness and bitterness. Is this the end of our romance? I left into the night, not looking back. I urgently needed to find a place to stay, to put my thoughts in order. Tomorrow there would be a difficult conversation with Megan and division of property, and also an agonizing choice between duty and the call of the heart. I still couldn't fully understand what I feel for Carol. Love, passion, attachment, or was it just a clouding of judgment, a consequence of a midlife crisis? I know one thing. She gave me the brightest and happiest moments in recent times, and I will always be grateful to her for this. Megan and I dissolved our marriage quite quickly. We decided to remain friends and not hold grudges against each other. After all, 12 years together is a long time. You can't just erase them from memory. I've taken a pause in communication with Carol for now. I need time to sort myself out and heal my wounds. And it's hard for her, too. After all, her daughter hasn't forgiven our affair. Who knows? Maybe when the pain subsides, we can be together. After all, true love is worth fighting for, even if the whole world is against it. That's my story, friends. Instructive and bitter. Perhaps it will save someone from mistakes, or on the contrary, give someone the courage to listen to the call of their heart. It's not for me to judge. I know one thing. It was a difficult, painful, but necessary experience. An experience that taught me to listen to myself, not to lie and not to dodge. And most importantly, to appreciate those who give you love and care, even if the whole world considers it wrong. Thank you to everyone who listened to the end. I hope my confession was interesting and useful to you. Love and be loved, and don't be afraid to follow your dream. With this, I'll probably finish. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, all the best to everyone. Did you like this story? Let us know in the comments what you liked. Subscribe to our storytelling podcast. Also, don't forget to like and ring the bell so you don't miss more interesting stories. See you soon.